remember they're changing my voice. Before we revisit John and talk about other things I have lined up for videos in the future, I'd like to revisit this picture. I added some pictures to it, right? This one right here is very key. As soon as I came across this, I said, hey, they have to respond to my martial art argument. Here you have an angel, a Luciferian fake angel, and who's called Angel, taking on a devil, right? Exactly what you expect in popular culture, white supremacy, what have you. Okay, the angel is a white person, in this case a white female. Okay, the devil's a male, and they're like, oh, stay away from our women, and everyone's happy, and it's subtly implied. But for the most part, people have been staying away from their women, and everyone is not happy. Things have gotten worse because white supremacy is not romantic justice. Okay, and this is with them trying to cook the books and everything. Okay, so we know in reality that's not the answer. Here we have Devil from Tekken, right now it's called Devil in that depiction of it. And we have Full Devil Kazua. Maybe this is a play on words, right? Cause you Yah. Yah is another word for the devil. Yahweh is actually a word for Satan. When you look at La, right? La, the moon deity, also called Yah, also called Jah, okay, is the prince of darkness, right? The moon, okay, a moon deity. Lunar cycle, lunatic, right? And of course it goes back to vampires and full moon werewolves and how they don't like the sun and so on and so forth. Okay, vampires don't like the sun and werewolves change back and so on and so forth. Okay, so here we have this clown that looks like, and they love the mocking, right? A lot of their culture is circus, right? Daredevil, Evil Knievel, circus evil, right? Circus occult, okay? And that looks like the Luciferian angel. Here we have Van Damme, like an LGBT person doing ballet to put on a show. He's not really a martial artist, he puts on a show, right? He's a movie artist, right? Here he has, and I have a picture that's actually not too much different than this because they edited it, where I'm holding a stuffed animal, okay? But I'm not a Luciferian, okay? What I was trying to depict is that children are dying, things that occurred in my life, and I said, they're killing the children, right? And that had something to do with that. I don't want to get into detail with it. It's a long story, and I want to kind of not do the story justice. So here we have Van Damme with a chihuahua, right? And he's making a kind of homosexual kind of face. And again, I'm not gay, okay? And here we have Lawrence of Arabia. I actually have the book here, but I took a picture so I could put it on this thing. Okay, and I spent a lot of money on ink here trying to show you, my points. Okay, and all this ink is going to fade away. The sun comes in. There's all kinds of problems that occur here, over here. Like, when I got out of the shower, it dripped a little bit on that picture. There's problems that occur. But anyway, notice he looks shady. Okay, these are Republicans who see themselves continuing the pioneers, right? The pilgrims, the colonists, the various groups of people who came here with white supremacy in mind, in a white sort of military operation to kind of force people to do it their way. Here's Francis Galton, the guy who coined the term eugenics. Notice how he's like the Mad Hatter, right? He's literally a crazy person who's arguing for white supremacy and scientific racism and scientific white supremacy, pseudoscience, kind of Eurocentric science, kind of thing. And here is another depiction of the Mad Hatter. Look at that kind of similarity, right? They're literally, in their popular culture, it's hidden in plain view. They're like, yes, they're crazy. They're shady, okay? The people doing this, and they're going out of their way to control reproduction, okay? That's why there's so many rockers here. Why there's so many white people with all their privilege? Okay, they're not necessarily all born rich, but they have a spectrum of privilege. And the variations that, I just dripped on another fucking picture. And the variations that comes with it, okay? And it's really sad because, there's someone else, people should be helping me out, and they're not. And we're going to make a video about that and how it proves my point and how they're silly and evil for avoiding it. So notice this female. Look at her face carefully, right? She looks a little bit confused. This is a very common look these days. Look at her. She looks kind of spaced out, kind of confused, kind of, huh? Okay? That's why women like that don't value me as the most righteous person ever. And even though they edit my pictures, you can see that I look significantly more righteous and more handsome and divine than everyone else. Okay, we'll get to that. Okay, I'm not boasting as some kind of in an evil way. I'm just pointing out the facts here. Okay, so you see all the fraternities and sororities. Look at this guy. Look at him carefully. 3, 2, 1. Compare him to the devil in Tekken. You see how they have a similar way about him. Okay, it's like this arrogant kind of English, because this guy's an English frat guy, kind of satanic, Satanist way. Remember Aleister Crowley's from England? He was a member of the English intelligence apparatus, right? He was an English intelligence agent. Okay, and there you have the word intelligence, right? You know, in all of its forms and manifestations and so on and so forth. And of course, he's not smart, but he wants you to believe that he is, and that's a common thing. Again, we have the man who would play God as a white person, devil in the suit, white person, and sleeping with a devil. And I believe all the people who wrote this are either white Jews or LGBT, and those people all look white Jew and LGBT-ish. That's not a coincidence. Here you have the cult here. Okay, so obviously, I think we all can agree that Satanism comes, Western Satanism, right? The dominant form of Satanism on this planet comes from white people, and it has a lot to do with control and reproduction. Okay, it's pretty straightforward. Okay, so let's read this over here and let's wrap this up. We know that I look more righteous than others, and I have been correctly claiming that they have been editing my pictures covertly to reduce my divine appeal, and to pretend that they are equal or greater to me as individuals and groups. Now, keep that in mind. Okay, I said they're trying to pretend they're equal or greater. Some people say, why don't you just let them do it? Well, listen carefully and you'll see why. Why would they allow me to look better than they do as a black person if I am not Christ, and they are not bragging about how it is hidden in plain view when they're sabotaging me, right? They're sabotaging me in a certain way that allows me to have a certain appeal. It's nowhere near what it was, and part of it has to do with, you know, the possibility that I'll die if I'm not allowed to look good. So there's that, you know, because it has to do with the image. We'll get to why I'm right about that in a second. I'm not saying I'm suicidal or something. We'll get to that. Okay. 2 Corinthians 11:10, going down to verse 10. As surely as the truth of Christ is in me, nobody in the regions of Achaia will stop this boasting of mine. So he says, I'm going to boast in Paul's letters. In 2 Corinthians chapter 11, he says, I'm going to boast. And they're not going to stop me in Achaia or anywhere else. Why? Because I do not love you? God knows I do. And I will keep on doing what I'm doing in order to cut the ground from under those who want an opportunity to be considered equal with us in the things they boast about. Okay, so that's right here, right? Verse 12. And I will keep on doing what I am doing in order to cut the ground from under those who want an opportunity to be considered equal with us in the things they boast about. It goes back to Psalm 118, where it says, all the nations surrounded me, but in the name of the Lord, I cut them down, right? Cutting them down so they sink into the pit. Right? These people, he's talking about spiritually. He's talking about martial arts, right? He's slicing them down surgically and spiritually so they fall through the ground spiritually speaking, not literally, and they sink spiritually lower into evil. And why does he say he do this? Well, let's keep reading. Because they want an opportunity to be considered equal with us in the thing they boast about. So he doesn't want them to be greater. He doesn't want them to be equal. For such people are false apostles, deceitful workers, masquerading as apostles of Christ. He said, they're not as righteous as I am. They have no right to demand to be considered equal. And if they take the white supremacy angle and say, well, we're Republicans, or we're liberals, or we're Freemasons, or we're privileged white sorority chicks from Alabama, or we're privileged church people, or rich corporate people, or whoever. If they make that argument, it is particularly disgusting because they're masquerading like they're holier than thou, like they're better than you, better, holy, righteous, godly. You're Mr. Right, right? Who's better? Who's good? A good person, right? They're acting like they're better. They're acting like they're apostles of Christ or something. And verse 14, it says, and no wonder, for Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. So here we see in sleeping with the devil is pretending that she should, seek refuge in him. He's holding her. It's like, I'm going to hold you, baby. And he pretends that she should seek refuge in him, right? Because he's masquerading as something that's good for her, who's going to comfort her. Kind of like drugs, political parties, churches, what have you. Okay? And it's like this guy, he's two-faced, right? Okay, so again, and no wonder, for Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. Again, light as the light of justice, the light of life, the light of God, okay? The light of God is the light of justice. It is the light of life. So this guy's saying, let's bring justice by getting at poor white people and minorities to bring in a certain justice. Yes. Okay? So let's wrap this up now. All right. It is not surprising then if his servants also masquerade as servants of righteousness, their end will be what their actions deserve. While they pretend that they are blessed, as they subtly cite things like the fact that blacks are only 6% of California and 30% of the homeless. As the homeless die in record numbers these days, the afterlife is what is cited as the end their actions deserve. So when he says in verse 15, it is not surprising then if his servants also masquerade as servants of righteousness. Their end will be what their actions deserve. Anyway, for looking like
me physically and to some degree spiritually, why my soul and spirit are the exact image of God, is why black people are persecuted. It is also their tradition, considering slavery and segregation and people worshiping the founding fathers of America. So why are blacks, who are only 6% of America, 30% of the homeless population? At one point, there were 45% of the prison, not county jail and every jail, but prison specifically, 45% of the prison system. When they're only 12%, 12 to 13% of the population, 6% of California, for example. Okay, you know, at one point I read there were 45% of San Quentin. Okay, now, and again,